It looks like we are live again on Facebook, and today we will be talking about something really kind of important, especially for anyone who's kind of in a place where they feel like they've been there, done that, they've done it all, seen it all. We all kind of get into that place, especially people who have been involved in BDSM for a long period of time. Uh, we know what aspects of play that we like. We've done numerous scenes, and our relationship, is just in a place, just kind of in the same place that it's always kind of been in. And I like to tell new people that when we enter into a relationship dynamic, that part of that relationship dynamic is creating goals and setting goals, and it's about growth. And oftentimes, though, we set aside growth and goals and things like that, and we focus more on playing. More on like the S&M type styles of things involved. We focus more on sexual encounters or play encounters, or fulfilling the types of kinks and fetishes that we really enjoy, or discovering which ones we enjoy. But a lot of times when people see a video about like self-discovery, they're thinking about just those aspects of S&M play that they like. But this is, a little deeper. We're at the point in this foundational series where we are focusing on on creating the type of community that we want to see. And part of that community is people who have been involved in BDSM for a while. You are part of the foundation in your area. You're part of the foundation that exists. And so when new people come in, they're oftentimes looking to you. And if you're stagnant, if you're just kind of settled, and a lot of times you can, begin to feel like, oh, this is just the same old thing. And then life just, it sometimes loses a bit of its thrill, a bit of its excitement, and a bit of its fulfillment. And that translates from you, it spills over into newer people who become involved. And so we want to be able to, in a foundational series, address people who've been involved in BDSM for a while, because there is aspects of a next level. And so you can always take your relationship or your relationship dynamic to the next level. And so that is, part of what this video is about. I'm Primal Piggy. You can find me on Facebook at The Primal Piggy, all one word. If you type that in there with the @ sign, my page will pop up. You can find the other videos in this series on my page. I'm also cross-posting this video today, and I've been doing this more and more. I help admin and create content for a site called Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape. We have over 100,000 followers. We have numerous pages. We have pages for littles and pages for LGBTQ. We have a polyamory page. We have numerous groups involved as well. But you can find the main page at WCDT BDSM. And if you type the @ sign and put that in the search bar for Facebook, our page will pop up. And so many of you, thank you. Many of you are watching these videos on Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate your support. And we're trying to, like I said, shape the community, the BDSM community that we want to see. And we want it to be a very fulfilling and vibrant and safe and stable. We want it to be a really good community, because we really believe that BDSM and this lifestyle are good for people when done safely, when done non-violently, when done consensually, when done with just adults involved. And so we practice non-violent consensual BDSM. It's not for minors. This video and all the videos I make are not for minors or mature content, but they abide by Facebook community standards, and they are not graphic at all. And so these videos can be posted across social media. You can share them without the fear of being without any fear, and just you can they follow community standards, because we are just going to be talking about concepts, but we won't be graphic at all. And so everything we're talking about is obviously for adults. I'm going to pull up my notes here. As with anything new, you got to prioritize the implementing of a new or changed lifestyle dynamic, and you got to make sure it's a smooth transition, because then it'll be successful. And before actively participating or transitioning to the next level of any DS or MS lifestyle dynamic, you got to spend some time in self-discovery. You really need to, you need to take some time to look inwardly, to try to remember why you got involved in BDSM. You need to think about things that well, I like to put it this way. I try to find people to help me think about the things I don't know to think about. Let me say that again. I try to find people to help me think about the things I don't know to think about. And so what that means is that, I can get stuck in one way. I have a certain limited amount of knowledge, and we all do. And there are things that I can be doing. There are areas of growth, and there is potential that is untapped within me, and I sometimes need to get out of my little circle or my little bubble and find people that will challenge me to help me think about things that I don't even know to think about. And so hopefully adding additional protocol, or looking at high protocol, talking more about character, and growing in your character. Some of those things are things that are not commonly, they may be in some beginner books, and they may be talked about a little, but they're things that are not really talked about or thought about in the BDSM community. And so, it's interesting. I made a video about S&M, and it had the most views of any video that I've made. The videos with the least amount of views were the most important ones. They're the ones about character, about the character of a good dominant and the character of a good submissive. And those were leadership and following basic principles. Those were things that make us be good people just in general. They make us those were talking about things that that apply to us in every situation in life. But we were talking about them within the context of BDSM, but those were things that people aren't generally thinking about. And so I was taking the opportunity, and I will continue to take the opportunity to help people think about the things that they don't know to think about, so that they can grow as people. And so we don't want to just be the same people we always were. We want to have growth in our communities, our BDSM communities, and growth in our relationships, and we want some individual personal growth as well. I think it's really important for us to be growing and changing, but we also need to be following those tried and true traditions. Traditions and rituals and things are not bad. A lot of times we're always looking for something new, and we forget to look in the past and see things that were old, things that still work. And so these aspects of high protocol, These things work. They help make they help make dominance more dominant and submissives more submissive, and they really fulfilling. They make the relationship very fulfilling in a relationship dynamic for both people involved, if done right, and if done with really excellent character. And so it's critical for a submissive to know their self and their submissive nature to serve a dominant well. It's likewise important for a dominant to know his or her own mind before attempting to guide and mold another person's mind. In addition, the dominant needs to be mentally and emotionally in an objective place where they can't just train, but learn the inner workings of the mind of the one they intend to train. The self-discovery process, you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can learn it through rituals, or you can just do it by going back to that negotiation and contract phase in one way of sitting down and talking, having some discussions and coming to some agreements, not necessarily in a formal sense, but in a more casual sense, having more discussions and coming to more agreements. And so after all, the better you know each other and yourself, the better equipped you are to commit to something that'll demand a bunch from both of you, mentally and physically. And so remember that people aren't machines, and they can't just perform as instructed without question. Unquestioning obedience comes from building a trust relationship, not from proclaiming a title and dictating rules. And so just because you put on your FetLife, one day you decide I'm a master, and you put master on FetLife on your, it doesn't mean that people are going to obey you, because you have to earn their trust. And so if you're a dominant in the dynamic, you got to earn it. If you're submissive, prepare yourself for it, and give only what is earned, or devalue yourself and what you offer the dominant. And so, give what is earned. Earn that trust, and then give your submission to what is earned. And so, even if you're a dominant in the equation, you're not immune to how protocols and rituals will affect you. That's something really important to know. It frequently, you're going to check in frequently with each other. You're always going to want to have open lines of communication. And as you grow and change and add new things, add a higher level of protocol, or implement more protocols and rituals, they're going to affect everyone involved. And so you definitely want to check in more frequently with each other. And so no matter what your role is in a power exchange dynamic, we are all constantly evolving and growing as individuals. You need to give yourself some room to accommodate that growth in your relationship. Communication. It's critical to the success of DS, MS, DDLG, any BDSM relationship. All these dynamics are based on mutual trust, and honest communication is the best way to establish that trust with your potential partner, or with your partner that you've been in a relationship with a long time. If you feel some stagnation, if you feel like I've heard it said before that if you stop long enough, the place where you've stopped is becoming your grave. And so you always need to keep moving. And so if you find that that where you are in your relationship feels somewhat dead and somewhat like beginning to come, if it's becoming dead, or feels like somewhat of a grave, the best way to get out of that rut is with some honest communication. It'll continue to build trust. It'll spark some freshness and newness in your relationship. Making a commitment to any training you intend to give and receive is absolutely critical. So as you begin to transition and grow and step out of where you are, both of you have to, or everyone involved has to make a commitment to the training. For the dominant, you got to commit to be responsible and consistent in your duties. You can't just, you can't, like I said in a previous video, you can't set up a ritual. You can't set up a routine for a submissive, and then when you feel it's convenient for you to break or to break that ritual to get what you want. Like I use the example of, if there's a ritual that takes place before in the bedroom you before you have sex, if you just really are in a place of lust and you want to have sex right now, you can break that ritual, but you can't do it too many times, because if you are not consistent, every time that you break that ritual and are inconsistent, you're saying that that you're not committed to the ritual on the dominant end. So the submissive will rely on you and to follow through and hold fast to the standards you put in place. That's what integrity is. Integrity is holding fast to the standards that you put in place. It will take work, time, and effort on your part, and the submissive will test the boundaries you put in place frequently until they're sure that you mean what you say. And so I'm not talking about brattiness or anything like that. I'm just talking about that if you say this is the way it is, and they see you breaking the way that it is just to get what you want, it will set the standard. It'll communicate to them, whether it communicates intentionally or just subconsciously. It'll tell them that the rules that I make aren't important to me. They're not really that important to me, because I'm willing to break them too. And so they will begin to it will begin to degrade the respect that they have for the rules or the boundaries or the rituals that you put into place. Whether they want to or not, it'll begin to loosen the respect until you have to be consistent, so they know that you mean what you say. And so that can be the hardest and most important part of your role in a dynamic that includes more protocol. If you fail in this, and you risk both the training as well as the dynamic on a whole crumbling before your eyes. It can be everything that you are beginning to, in all areas that you're growing. You can begin, to degrade, and those things can begin to crumble with just the smallest amount of inconsistency on your part. For the submissive, be prepared to test your ability to go beyond your normal way of doing things and to find a deeper level of servitude and obedience to another. And so you are, you're going to be used to, as a submissive, doing things in a certain way. And there's going to be some different ways that outside of what was once normal to you. As you grow, there's going to be perhaps some different ways of doing things. You're going to have, an increased number of steps in a ritual, for instance. When you make your dominant's coffee, you may have just made them coffee and threw in a little bit of sugar and threw in some cream or whatever and eyeballed it in the past. But if your dom makes it into a ritual to begin to add protocol to that making coffee, you may have to now measure the sugar and measure the cream, and so there may be additional steps. You may have to, place a napkin in a certain way and position the coffee cup handle in a different way. There may be just some different things out of the ordinary or out of the norm of how you were used to doing things, and now they've taken something that was mundane and they're using it as ritual to help train you and help deepen your level of servitude and your level of submission, and just to make it more fulfilling and to add some excitement. And so go in my notes here. Changing anything requires changing your mind. Changing anything outwardly requires also changing your mind. And so there's you know uh, there's some things we need to take into consideration when we start. I don't want to say messing with the mind, but when we start training the mind, it's the um, adding protocols and rituals and routines and adding more structure is clearly a process of mental conditioning. And it's using basic human psychology to achieve a desired set of results. And some people may call it brainwashing or dehumanizing or degrading, but um, uh, but it is meant to be a consensual process. Remember, we practice nonviolent consensual BDSM, and so really, when we're doing a process of mental change or mental conditioning, it is a consensual process, and you can't lose sight of the fact that the end objective is an accumulation of mutually desired set of changes in search of a common goal. And so you're not changing, or you're not conditioning a submissive to do things, to do unethical things. You're not trying to break them just so that you can put them under your thumb, just so that you can make your you're not doing it just with an intention of just because you're power hungry. You're doing it because you find fulfillment as a dominant, in being dominant, and you have a care and a concern and a love, just in general love of your, or even a romantic love for your submissive, and you know that they find in a deeper level of submission, they find greater fulfillment and fun. And so, uh, no less traumatic for a submissive than boot camp is for a trainee hoping to become a Marine in the military. It might not be as physically demanding in most cases, but it'll most likely be even more mentally and emotionally demanding. You're asking someone to let go of their very nature, their trust, maybe even their deepest, darkest secrets in some case, and simply hand them over to the dominant with absolute trust and belief that no harm will come from it. Know that predators use exactly the same techniques on submissive men and women every day. They take their deepest, darkest secrets, or their deepest, darkest desires, and they use them to take advantage of, rather than cultivate them into the submissive they trusted the predator to help them become. It's everyone in the whole BDSM community, it's everyone's responsibility to ensure this doesn't happen. The submissive, as well as the dominant, must share this burden of making the right choices. And this is why those videos that I made in the past, and this is why character and developing personal character is of utmost importance, both for ourselves and for the broader community. We don't need to be predators ourselves. We don't need to even act like predators at all in and of ourselves. But we need to know the type of character and develop the type of character in our community that where we can weed out predators. Sometimes predators try to come to munches. We've held BDSM munches, and we've had to uninvite people, and we've had to escort people off the premises and tell them, I'm sorry, but you need to leave. The types of things that you are doing are predatory in nature, and we don't want any part of that in our community. Excuse me. One of the most common mistakes when engaging in a dynamic comes back to the why question. Why are we even wanting to grow and change? And we do it because it pleases us and it fills our wants and desires. Ultimately, we have a desire. We want BDSM to make us happy. And this means that on some level, it's fun. Some of the most serious and intense dominants, love to laugh and play with their submissive partners. My sub and I, we have, a very playful relationship, and we poke fun at one another for little things. Like, I can give you one that is both personal, but it's kind of funny too to me, is that she can watch horror movies, but to me, I just can't do it. I can't watch horror movies for whatever reason. I tell her that I am sensitive and fragile, and so even though I'm the dominant in the relationship, in on that level, I'm sensitive and fragile, and I can't handle horror movies. And so, so she pokes fun at me. Yes, oh, daddy is so fragile and he's so sensitive. And then she, will post a picture or try to share with me something about a scary movie that she's enjoying. And I want to just put a box over my head and hide. And so, something to take note of is, unless humiliation and degradation are a mutually agreed upon part of your relationship dynamic, don't use them as tools. There's a breaking down and rebuilding of someone into a beautiful work of art, and then there's a demolishing them emotionally and walking away from the rubble that was their psyche. You don't want to make a mess of someone. You want to break them down and rebuild them into a beautiful work of art. That's a really great metaphor there. And so you don't, you know, no, don't use things in your relationship, obviously, that are not, don't add things without understanding limits and boundaries. That's always the case. Be sure of yourself and know what your limitations are before you delve blindly into another person's mind. Know what the person's history and past have hidden away that may cause problems midstream. You don't want landmines. You don't want to step on a landmine. Um, if this is a subject you don't know enough about to comfortably practice with another person, then don't do it. As you're growing, if you get to a point where you just, as a dominant, you just don't think that you can really do this, then limit your protocol training and mental conditioning to simple rituals and more generic protocol training. Don't try to jump into high protocol if it really ultimately isn't for you. There are aspects of you can eat the meat and spit out the bones. You can tailor all of these things to your dynamic, and you can add as much or as little as helps you grow. You remember, we have to accommodate we have to make room for and accommodate growth in our relationship. And so we have to make room for growth. And so we also need to take it somewhat slow sometimes. And so if we are if you're beginning to add things and you don't want to get ahead of yourself or get too far out there, you want to, sometimes you need to dial things back, and don't ever be scared or afraid. Just be honest in your communication that, okay, that's a little much. Let's, we tried this out. You want to check in frequently. We tried out this ritual and it's a little too much for me. Let's dial it back. Maybe change it in this way, alter it in that way. So deep mental and emotional conditioning is not for novice dominance. Public settings, and it's not for public settings or anyone you've not invested a lot of time and energy into on a one-on-one basis. Mental conditioning and things are not going to be super practical in an online only dynamic. You have to also have a real life dynamic. It's going to be difficult when you're not in the presence of someone to try to do these things online or through technology. That's going to be really difficult. Just something to note. As you explore your dynamic, you're looking for yourself. You need to remember that DS and MS and other types in adding protocol and dynamics don't require that you have an S&M component to make them work. In our broader BDSM communities, dungeons, sadomasochistic play, polyamory, swinging, some of those things often take a leading role in our communities. It's important to remember that peer pressure can be a powerful incentive to pursue diversions from your dynamic. But it's up to you to know what you need and make your own choices. Choose your kinks carefully and don't be in a hurry to embrace everything. You don't have to, just because your people in your community are really into impact play, you don't, even if you're curious about it, you don't need to necessarily include impact play as a aspect of growth. I'm talking about growing your relationship in this video, and as we're kind of drawing to a close, because I don't want this to be a really long video. This is about transition, and so this is somewhat of a transition into talking more about protocol in a more specific sense. Before we got there, you don't have to include everything when you're growing or changing. When you're looking to make changes in your dynamic, you can make changes in the way that the dominant interacts with the submissive, and the way that the submissive interacts with the dominant. You don't have to have external new types of rope bondage and impact play or anything. If you haven't, you don't need to find. Oftentimes, when you want to grow in your relationship dynamic, you don't need to add new elements of S&M play to get to the next level. That's what I'm trying to say. So oftentimes people will say, well, we're not really into needles and knife play, but if we add that, then that'll take us to the next level. And that's not true. Adding a new element of just playing or scening won't necessarily increase dominance and submission, and it may not ultimately fulfill you. And so perhaps the thing that you don't know to think about is that oftentimes you're looking for these external kinks and fetishes when you're trying to grow, that if you just do another different thing, if we just go skydiving, that's just going to be the next thing. We've skydived, now maybe we need to add bungee jumping to make our relationship grow. Outside of BDSM, that just sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? And so but within BDSM, we often are so focused on play and kinks and fetishes that we sometimes lose sight of things that ultimately build our relationship. If you're building a relationship or a relationship dynamic, oftentimes it's not these outward external things like S&M play or new different varying types of S&M play that are going to help you grow. It is focusing on things like structure, protocol rules, rewards. Those are the areas that are ultimately going to make you grow, make your relationship grow. And so, in other words, I'm saying is, don't get caught up with the peer pressure of everyone else saying, you guys haven't tried pet play or puppy play. Maybe you should add that to your dynamic because that'll really help your relationship grow. That's not really the case. Some external way of playing isn't adding that element isn't going to ultimately grow your relationship dynamic. It isn't going to. It may be exciting and fun thing to try, and trying new things is excellent. But an external thing like that isn't going to help your relationship grow. These internal things, these aspects of the dynamic itself, adding protocols and things, that's where you're going to find a deeper level of dominance and a deeper level of submission, and that's where you're going to find the ultimate growth. And so thank you for this video, for watching this video with me and being a part of it. Thank you for liking my page at the Primal Piggy on Facebook, Also, thank you for following Whips, Chains, and Duct Tape. They are at WCDT BDSM. And I look forward to additional videos in the future in this series. You can find all the previous ones on my Primal Piggy Facebook page. And, have a good day.